Good afternoon, folks. Chief Meteorologist Nick Lilliga here with a look at your tropical update for September 18th of 2018. We're slowly getting through hurricane season. Next up on the list, and I hope we don't have to use it, is Kirk. Joyce is still floating around out there. We're not going to talk about Joyce, but it's a subtropical system about some 200-300 miles outside of the Azores. But Isaac is no longer there. Helene's no longer there. We still have Florence, but it's now post-tropical. And this is my favorite graph to show this time of the year, which is we have passed the peak of hurricane season, and we are now tumbling down the graph. We will end up with a small peak as we head through the middle of October, and that just happens to be as the cold fronts start moving across the southeastern United States. Tail ends of these cold fronts end up getting kind of cut off, either near the Gulf of Mexico or near the East Coast, out over those warm ocean waters. And so that's the only reason we get a little bit of an uptick out here, is once the cold front starts sliding through, you always end up with riffraff off the back end of it. But this is where we're generally looking as we close out September all the way out into the open Atlantic to just off the coast of Africa. The good news for us is the MJO is flipped. That means all the tropical waves that come off of Africa have slowed down. They haven't stopped completely, but they've slowed down a little bit. And now we have to watch stuff maybe a little bit closer to our neck of the woods as we get toward October. Then we start looking off the East Coast and into the Gulf. It's stuff basically in the Caribbean and back off to the west. And then once we get into November, yes, November, hurricane season goes through the end of November. Then it's stuff real close to home in the Gulf and just off the East Coast. The reason? Well, it's the water temperatures that are out there so warm. We actually have readings in the Gulf at 90 degrees. In the eastern Gulf, generally, we're hanging out right around the mid to upper 80s. Same thing goes as you head out into the open Atlantic. We're missing a bunch of data out here from a lot of our buoys, which is a little troublesome. And we've been missing data out here into the open Atlantic. A little troublesome, but not the end of the world. We still have the contours on here from satellite data. Speaking of satellite data, this is what's left of Isaac. National Hurricane Center not even concerned about it reorganizing in the next 5 days, which is good. And in about 5 days, if it continues on its trek, it'll be kind of somewhere in the Bay of Campeche. So it'll probably continue moving kind of west-northwest and into parts of Mexico. We're watching this little feature here. This is a mid-level area of low pressure. The last time we had a little mid-level area of low pressure out there, it was kind of associated with that Invest 95L that ended up moving into parts of Texas. So we'll keep an eye on this. This isn't anything of imminent development. In fact, the National Hurricane Center also not watching this for the next 5 days for development, but we've got our eye on it. Taking a wider view of things, we've got plenty of action, showers, thunderstorms along the intertropical convergence zone down here, but of little consequence. There's no organized area of low pressure. It's not even really associated with a wave that came off the coast of Africa. So it's just some thunderstorm activity that we'll keep our eye on through the next few days. Yes, there's still Florence to talk about too. This was the last update. Post-tropical Florence, 10 a.m. Central Time, 11 a.m. Eastern, 45 miles off to the west-northwest of Boston. Wind at just 25 miles an hour, moving off to the east-northeast at 25. Good riddance. That's all I got. Technically, I think it's kind of right in here, according to the last update from the Hurricane Center. There is a chance that the very tail end of this gets caught up in that mid-level area of low pressure, and we may end up with something out of that. But that's still talking about somewhere in the ballpark of the next 7 to 10 days out. There it is right there. That's the little tail end piece thing. You can see on the brighter, warmer colors in here, you've got a little area of low-level rotation. But outside of that, you look out into the Gulf. We got plenty of dry air from the Gulf to the Caribbean into the open Atlantic. We've got that one little area down here, but there's no real organized area of low-level rotation. And again, there's the kind of tail end of Florence. Notice how it gets kind of shrouded up by a whole mess of dry air, though. I will say as we head through the next few, here's the 23rd of September, really not much going on, and I'm okay with this. I don't know anybody's going to argue. We got dry air across parts of the Atlantic, the Gulf of Mexico. This is through the end of September. We'll take it, truth be told. We may get a little bit of an uptick as we head into October. That's beyond, you know, about 10 days into kind of that 12 to 15-day window. But until then, I think the tropics will be generally quiet as we keep our eyeballs on everything that's kind of floating around out there. Anyway, that's a look at your tropical update for September 18th of 2018, brought to you by the folks at Tropical Pool and Spa.